love the channel and find it useful in becoming a happy retiree. Subscribe today. There's an awful lot to cover. Tax breaks. We're going to talk about the tax changes, not just the federal ones, but there's some state things happening. And we've been on the forefront of tax reform now since long before it even happened. Let's go back almost a year when there was just a nascent plan lurking in the distance, and now we have full tax reform here in the United States. But that tax reform had some unintended consequences on the state income tax side. As you know, when you file your taxes, you don't just pay money to the federal government. In many, many states, you pay money to your state directly, state income tax. And for the states that don't have an income tax, like Florida and Tennessee and Texas, those states collect their taxes in some sort of different way. It might be through sales tax and other measures. So we are talking about the tax breaks or the tax changes in the state of Georgia. And oh, by the way, last week was the bull market birthday, the 9th year of this bull market, and an important jobs report that just came out on Friday. So there's an awful lot to talk about. We might even talk about Ron Paul today. We might even go into Ron Paul and what he's been saying about the stock market, because we have another one of these examples of, somebody that's on the air that just makes absolutely no sense. So let's do this. Let's start with taxes, because it impacts all of us. And let's go back to talking about what happened on the federal tax side, how it impacts you. Let me give you an example. Here's an example. Couple, Sally and Tom, $100,000 in income, living in Georgia, paid $2,000 in property taxes, and another $13,000 in other itemized deductions, for a total of $15,000. Sally and Tom, maybe you know Sally, maybe you know Tom, would save under the new tax bill, about $1,250 on their federal tax bill by switching to the standard deduction, the new larger standard deduction. But the Georgia tax side is different, though. Taking the Georgia standard deduction could cost the couple around $720. So we're not talking about chump change here. That leaves the overall net tax reduction, makes it look a lot less appetizing, right? All of a sudden you look at this, you say, federal, I'm going to save $1,250. Not so fast. Your Georgia taxes were going to go up by $720. So that leaves a net tax reduction of about $530. It didn't take long for legislators, after we started writing about this, to catch on. More taxes for Georgia residents means more taxes for the state of Georgia. According to another article in the AJC, the size of Georgia's estimated windfall because of this sneaky little problem from the federal tax overhaul that Congress was getting, the Congress was getting to be massive for the state. First, it was the estimate's $3.7 billion over 5 years, and it was $4.7 billion, and then it got up to $5.2 billion. So this tax windfall for the state of Georgia. Now, there's a decent ending to this story. The state legislator, Governor Deal, stepped up big time just recently, and you probably haven't even heard about it. And Georgia state legislator just stepped up. House Bill 918 does exactly what our readers and our listeners were asking for. It doubles the Georgia standard deduction. Doubles it from $3,000, this is for families, and it also doubles this for single taxpayers, but for families from $3,000 to $6,000 per family. Now, and maybe this is still because we're still that's still a relatively low state standard deduction. This bill also just flat out lowers the Georgia state income tax starting next year. For the highest bracket. That pretty much anyone who works, who is making a wage, is paying about 6% right now for the Georgia state income tax. That's going to get lowered to 5 3/4, and then it's going to get lowered to 5 1/2. 0.5% is a big deal. Again, let's look at that $100,000 example. On $100,000, that's $500 less in Georgia taxes. An extra $3,000 in a Georgia standard deduction will be worth about, it's called $165 if you do the math. 5.5% times that extra $3,000 So you take the $500 and the $165 between the savings you're going to get for that new higher standard deduction and just the flat out lower tax rate. My example, you're going to save about $665. We are pretty much back to a neutral place for those who would have been impacted, for those who would have been impacted on the state side. So bottom line, victory for taxpayers in the state of Georgia. Hi, I'm Wes Moss, and thanks for taking a minute to hear about what's so different about my new book, You Can Retire Sooner Than You Think. So unlike other retirement books, this book will give you a step-by-step guide, whether you're in your 20s or 30s or 40s or 50s, to learn from what these successful and happy retirees did to get there. I hope you enjoy the book, but more importantly, I know that it'll help you retire sooner than you think.